If I'm, me personally, if I all of a sudden said I want to try to be a CrossFit Games athlete, I would assume that somebody would be like, hey man, like,
you weigh 150 pounds.
Yeah.
We're going to need to get you a snack.
I don't know. Look at that grip test. I need a snack. I need a sandwich.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. The boys are back in town. We are recovered. We're back on the seltzer.
Hard seltzer?
No. The back on the polar seltzer.
On the polar game. Still looking for that sponsor.
Still looking for that sponsor. It was 28 degrees this morning. It is November.
Big yikes.
Winter is here. I go to Texas for a couple of days. I come back. It's 28 degrees.
Yeah, I was Austin, Massachusetts.
It was cool. The road competition, I think they did a really good job. I felt like the baseball stadium idea in theory was a little weird, but the seating and the way that it sort of comes up around where they were working out was cool.
The dugout thing was pretty neat. I thought that was a cool way to get people onto the field, like have them come out like they're announced, like someone's up to bat or whatever. I thought that was a pretty neat way to announce an athlete and let them kind of step out onto the field.
Yeah, I mean they obviously have. Man, do they have the best reputation in the entire community of any company?
Rogue?
Yeah. They might.
I don't know anybody. I don't think anybody goes rogue and is like, oh, those guys. Like, I don't think anyone feels that way.
Yeah. Which has been really cool to see because we used to email with the owner about getting our gear and he would send a personal quote. And now they're giving away whatever, 260 grand to the winners with all the Bitcoin and the prizes. And, yeah, it was cool. It was cool. We were out there to sort of scope it out and see if we wanted to get involved, sponsorships and, booths and all that stuff. And one part that was unique that we really liked is the, you all right over there?
Yeah, I was just laughing at Sherb's grip test. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Says the guy that disappointed every one of his fans with his fucking score.
Wow. Okay. All right. Let's take it easy.
Everyone knows not to expect much from me, but you
let
over
everybody down. I just randomly pictured you squeezing it and then like getting your score and just throwing it on the table like you usually do. Just all
pretty
off. No. Sorry. Carry on.
We're good. You didn't need a ticket to go to Vendor Village. I thought that was cool. So you could go hang out. There's a bunch of shit going on. So all the local CrossFit people could go get involved, watch they had the Rogue record breakers in the middle, all that shit. Which is kind of funny because there were a bunch of people there and like I could think of multiple CrossFitters that could do the things that were happening in the middle if they had just known like just the weird things. They have that big boulder with the chain hooked up to it and the metal handle.
I think you pick up off the ground, like whatever, 6 inches.
You pick it up off the ground. You do it's weird. You do this staggered stance and you have one in front of you and one behind you. And you're just thinking of someone who can deadlift a lot with grip strength. And you're like, I know this person that could hold on to that thing for who knows how long. Anyways, really cool competition. Thought they did a great job. If you're sort of wondering, jeez, Castle, you all right?
Good boy.
Castle is not a fan of the Rogue Invitational. No. We found someone who doesn't like Rogue.
That's the first one.
So what were we talking about?
Just stuff at Rogue. How it was nice to see the event and like what they put together and the fact that it was more than just a CrossFit competition, but like a fitness event that I think is pretty unique. I mean, you see things like Wadapalooza, they'll have like a weightlifting event the night before the thing kind of kicks off, or they'll do some strongman. But to me, that was just a nice opportunity to get a bigger community together. And if you have people who are interested in strongman, maybe not CrossFit, they get a chance to see what CrossFit's all about, or vice versa. So to me, it was just a unique event. And, it's really cool that Rogue has branched out more than just CrossFit. And I think that event will continue to grow. And, I thought was really cool there. We sort of touched on it a minute ago was the prize purse. Like you went and looked at who made what that weekend. Like there are top 5 athletes all making, wouldn't say awesome year salary if you're not like, first or second, but still making a good amount of money, allowing them to do what they want to do, which is, the step in the right direction. Right. One of the things I noticed on social media and kind of following it's like, oh, this is what a competition should pay athletes if they want them to go out. So it's just nice to see Rogue take that another level because that's how the sport's going to advance is someone caring enough to be like, all right, this needs to be treated like a professional sport.
It's weird seeing strongmen with like Metcon. A lot of them wearing Metcon. Some of them were wearing Noble shoes. Like there's definitely that crossover there. And that's what you want.
Yeah.
Like that's what I always thought was really funny in the early days of CrossFit about all the hate. It's like, we're all like, we think you guys are great and we think you guys are great and we watch all your videos and like learn from you guys. And there's that like,
I think the other communities are have come around and are coming around to the idea of CrossFit.
Commerce helps.
Yeah,
Sure does.
People are cool with that. All right. Well, we've got a grip test going down today, and if you listened to the wacky, wild, and crazy episode 200 with our costumes and Sherb and I sweating our asses off in our costumes,
Very sweaty.
you know that we had some prizes to give out. So we have the 4 prizes, closest guess to our actual scores. One will be Sharpen the Axe, one will be Misfit, one will be Proper Fuel, and one will be Pure Spectrum. And then we have the random giveaway, the emoji giveaway on YouTube for the $200 hair STA gift card. So Hunter, you got them?
Yeah. Do we know who was getting what again?
They just email and we send them their prizes.
So the closest guess there we got up on the screen. If you're on YouTube, we got some embarrassing fucking numbers.
Flip flop Drew and me. It's weird.
Yeah. All right. So last place, Shreb.
False.
With a whopping 142.2. Closest guess was
1400. You're
Laura. Laura, make sure that you email the email that I tell you to at the end of this.
Hold on, though. Aiden Bailey, if you're listening to this, you guessed that Sherb got 76, and I would like to send you a shirt. So hit me up on those DMs, and we'll get you a shirt.
That is a really good guess.
That's an excellent troll.
That's a good guess. Yeah. In
disrespectful.
in an embarrassing second to last place finish was myself.
I like that you're up over, and if you're watching on YouTube, up over to the left of the score.
That's why I was like looking at it. I was like, wait, that's not me. I'm in the background of that video, or in the background of that screenshot.
That's a photo.
No, it was pretty fucking embarrassing. Everybody guessed over. I appreciate all the people out there guessing well over, and we had to dig for Sean Matthews. You guessed the lowest, so. Thanks.
Like a thanks slash insult.
Still not even close,
Matthews,
to be honest.
It was still high, so I appreciate the confidence. But Sean Matthews, you won closest to mine. Then we had Ted in second place. The maiden voyage, Skep Turka, closest guess to Ted. And then Drew's closest guesser, Chris Andrews. Drew took the W home. So
Chris, we're going to pad your prize a little bit because I think you might have guessed everyone's score. I don't know if you were like, yeah.
You got 2.
Yeah, I don't know if you zoomed in on YouTube, you did some sort of trickery, or if you just really know that grip tester.
Yeah, but we're not sending you all that shit. Sorry. And then Kelsey Lloyd. Kelsey Lloyd was the emoji winner. She did what we had her do 2 emojis, but she also put a third one that was your favorite.
No, it was
Drew,
random.
so...
It was totally random.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
So completely random, but Kelsey Lloyd, nice job using the third emoji. All of you guys can email podcast@misfitathletics.com and we will get you squared away with yo prizes.
And that means that we're going to do a grip test right now.
That means we're back in
Sherb has been a salty dog this morning. So I'm wondering, I think he's either going to get 130 or 160.
I'm leaning 130.
What does his anger produce today?
Let's find out.
We shall find out.
I don't know, I'm kind of sweaty.
Hunter, what did you do to him?
I don't know. I didn't do any.
What did you do to me?
He came in a little bit salty. He kind of came across the gym. The back door was locked. I could hear him like,
hey guys, it's 1.6 better than last time.
Hey,
143.8.
Wait, why are you going second, Hunter? Sorry. Not sorry though.
Dickweed.
Oh my!
That was a
goodness.
good one. Yeah, Daddy's back. 168.6.
Oh my goodness! That's only about 12 ahead of my best.
Enjoy. The People's Champ is back.
If I do well, it's because I slept in my own bed last night. If I don't, it's because I traveled yesterday.
If I don't, it's because my luggage is in Detroit.
Oh my God. 161.6. I mean, it's a victory without being a victory.
Wow, in the 60s.
Moral victory.
What have you been doing? You got one of those little springy boys that you've been squeezing during, you were spectating, squeezing the little spring.
I had
grip tester, grip
a
thing?
family size bag of Skittles and a large popcorn at Dune IMAX the other day. So I think the glycogen stores are full.
Charged.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. So you either need a full family-size bag of Skittles and popcorn, or to not have eaten for 96 hours. What
does that say about what I normally eat?
Yeah. Range right there.
A lot of opportunities for.
All right.
Yeah.
For what?
I don't know.
He's not sure.
I'm
Lot of
I'm at a
opportunities.
loss.
I was trying to save him.
a lot of range.
Nah,
a lot of
great.
range there.
All right. I think the perfect segue into what is happening right now in Misfit Land and what the podcast topic is today is the fact that it's test week. We are in retest week right now, and we talk a lot about how to actually retest in the way that we're looking for. So we have your experience within your first test. What happened? Okay. Did you choose the right sets? Did you pace properly? There's so many different things that you can learn about a workout. Most people get better when they do a workout for the second, third, fourth, fifth time, whatever it is. Hopefully that's because they're thinking about their experience and not just being like, oh, maybe I'll try something different or whatever.
Goldfish.
We have that. Then we take all of the things that we're testing and we bias them throughout the 5 weeks in the middle. So you're trying to get better at that thing. Hopefully that's a byproduct of linear progression, but also skill-based type stuff. So are you actually improving on it, not only, at the muscular, cellular level, however you want to say that, but actually getting better at the movement itself. And last but not least, we make sure to blast all your energy systems while you're going through it. So did you essentially learn from your test? Did you improve on specific skills? And did you get fit? I would say every single person heading into test week or retest week has the possibility for all those three things, no matter what. You can really take a second, dig into it, warm up the way you would for an open workout or an online qualifier or whatever, and really try to improve within that way.
Yeah, as you were speaking, the thing that came to mind would almost be like a video game character. As you take your tests, you establish a baseline. Your fitness is 70 out of 100 points. And every single time that you go back into training over the last 6 weeks and you've had the opportunity to do something like a handstand push-up or a row or handstand, whatever gave you trouble, you had the opportunity to add especially experience points to those different skills. And throughout the phase, the goal would be to increase your overall fitness, but specifically in those aims, like maybe it was an energy system that you struggled with, or it was a movement you struggled with. And that's kind of where we put a little bit more effort and energy into those things, kind of prioritizing those because those are the gaps in our fitness. And the game is ever evolving. So every time there's a new set of test weeks, there's something else to be focusing on or a change in that idea. But as we continue to do this throughout the season, we see those bars begin to rise throughout the entire year. And the hope is that with proper training, proper attention to everything else outside of the gym, that those levels don't ever come back down like you would if you had an injury or if you took significant time off. That's all it kind of sparked in my mind as you were saying that, is that you're effectively just trying to add experience points, and that comes in the way of both mental reps, physical reps, and then just, digesting what had happened, because that to me is what separates people who grow very fast and people who are, improving, but not at the rate they hope to improve at.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's sort of like having an arch nemesis or a rival in more traditional sports. When you go back to our, program guide and weekly check-in stuff, like I'd love to see someone with like that red marker circling that, like, I'm going to fuck you up piece. Like the thing that really gave you problems, the thing that you really kind of dug into and worked on, the thing that you've reshaped your mind and your relationship to either that movement or energy system, whatever it is. I think there's something really great about just developing a narrative and a story in your head of like, this is the one, this is the thing. And I think you can have a few during test week. The thing that we try to get athletes that we're working with one-on-one to stay away from is circling every single piece. That's a challenge. When you've got multiple, some days you do have multiple tests, when you're, doing a retest on a lift, and then you have that other one. So, maybe it is one a day. I'd say that would be the absolute stretch the most, but hopefully it's 2 or 3. You go in, you circle them, and you really feel like you're.
And that's how I treat remote coaching anyways. You have the primer week leading up to retest week is the opportunity to kind of let things heal, body get right, mind get right. And then for my athletes specifically, when we get to test week, we're talking about those pieces ahead of time. Like, hey, here are the 2 to 5 pieces. I agree with you. I don't really want an athlete retesting every single workout they tested during test week. I want them to pick 1 or 2. And then outside of that, it's about getting healthy, still sweating, still getting into the gym and doing your thing, but I'm not as concerned about volume kind of in weeks 6 and 7 the same way I am weeks 2 through 5, because I really do want them to have the opportunity to heal from the training. It has to be overreached. Then I want them to be able to hammer their test scores from test week, and then I want to make sure they're ready for a following test week, because that is one thing that does happen in our programming is you do a retest week and the following week is a new test week. So it's important to me that we kind of manage volume in that regard so that we actually do set ourselves up, and then we're not going into test week having just beaten ourselves into oblivion and then we just pee all our scores just because we were so messed up from the test week that we just, or the retest week we just finished as we go into test week. So to me, it's really about making sure that we dial in the things that we actually need to check in on again to see where we've got, we've grown over the last 7 weeks. But then it's, hey, I want to make sure that we're also right for the upcoming test week, because our sport just keeps going and going. And there's no like, all right, did it, check, can take 6 months off. It's no, as soon as you get done in one, take a little break and it's right back to the next thing.
I think part of the test retest thing that is so important for athletes is understanding that like they're going to be, the way that we structure things is to ensure that you're getting the exposure to everything that we need to over the course of the year. But you also have to understand and kind of think from a personal perspective that you might not need to, like, we're not too concerned about you PRing your 1 rep max squat clean. Like, or, if you're already very strong, it's, a 6 or 7 week training cycle might not yield like a PR. That doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't helpful, but directing your effort towards the thing like, okay, yeah, I don't need to PR my squat clean, but I do need to make sure that I'm ready for that deadlift test, because I'm terrible at deadlifting when it comes to the, the high rep, high volume stuff that we see in the open. So kind of to your point, it's focusing on the things that you need to, and realize that, there are a lot of things that go into a extreme, like a world-class performance, or not doing as well as you did during test week, during the initial test week. So you don't want to obviously get too hung up on that should something go poorly, but there's a lot of ways to demonstrate that you've gotten better at something. I'm sure that's something we'll kind of get to in the. It's
really not like if it goes poorly, there's still plenty to learn from that. Like there are plenty of opportunities to like grow and learn from failures, and that's something that's really important.
The entire basis of the podcast today. Yeah, really.
I mean, that is a huge part of what happens here. Like when we have our initial baseline of information that we went through, a physical, mental experience, we now have this like foundation for how it went last time. And then we created a narrative around like, this went well, that went well. I need to do this differently last time. I get a transition this way this time. And then you try it, and sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're not successful. Sometimes you PR, and sometimes you definitely don't, but you learn a lot from it. And that to me is what it matters. Like it's great to have an awesome retest week. You go into the gym and every single thing that you did, you improved upon, and you improved on the way that you hope to. But the same token, if you don't take that growth and then be able to apply it where it actually matters, was that one instance great, or did you just have like a good week? And that can happen if an athlete doesn't take the information they've learned over the last 7 weeks and find a way to apply it to something that they're, shooting for, whether that's competing at a high level competition or just getting healthy.
Amen. All right. So today's episode is defining the 3 points of the athlete IQ triangle. You've heard us talk about athlete IQ quite a bit over the last, I would say 6 to 9 months, somewhere in that range. And I thought it would be a really cool exercise as we start to put out more content, and potentially even, the type of thing where you would have an athlete IQ book, and you'd have, entries, and you'd have, I need to know these things about my different times, and I need to know, my set of chest to bar that I can do, whatever it is. Before that content comes out, I thought it would be really cool if you guys got to hear us talk through the actual definitions of the athlete IQ. So basically what we're working with today is the 3 points are mind, body, and experience. I think we should start with experience because I believe it is sort of the part of the ecosystem that informs the rest of the ecosystem. If you are an athlete and you are not really sort of, it's basically the spiel you get in history class, right? Like if we don't learn from this, then what's the point? That sort of deal. So I'd like to start with experience, just so that we can really sort of lay out what we mean by taking in the things that we do, learning from them, and being able to push them into the categories of the mind and the body. Do you guys want to jump in at all before we do the specific categories?
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, I think I thought you were going to go in the opposite order, but the experience to me is like
is it a funnel or a pyramid? That was part of our meeting. We don't know.
It's both kind of the base of the pyramid because the other two are, informed through experience, but it's also the, kind of the,
something has to happen for experience to be created.
The physical and the mental things kind of come, those are maybe the more day-to-day things. To me, the experience serves as more of the 10,000-foot view, or can serve as that. So it's, I don't know, maybe we'll get a rotating triangle or some shit like that. But to me, the experience thing is that there's a lot of athletes, especially in CrossFit, who come from other athletic backgrounds. And I would say that those athletes tend to have, I would say generally have a slight advantage just from a pure athleticism standpoint. But until you've spent literal months and years coming into the gym and doing it consistently, training on a consistent basis, getting kind of the reps in physical, like both, literal and figurative reps, it's really difficult to kind of inform your athlete IQ or kind of where you're at in the process, because you can have as much experience as you want in a different sport, but nobody would claim that I played 10 years of football, so I'm qualified to be a good hockey player. Like that, it's not the same. So I think the experience thing is probably the most important. And if you take nothing else from kind of the podcast today, like the things that occur in your brain and physical and the kind of the mind and body side are all a result of you coming into the gym every day and training. And whether that's a GPP program, CrossFit.com, or, you've got remote coaching or whatever it is, you just you have to go in and get your reps in. And I think that's just the foundation for the other kind of two legs of the stool.
Yeah, to me, the experience is the part that unfortunately you're not born with. You have to go through it. And to me, it's always that conversation with an athlete of like, we talk about doing something a certain way, and intuitively they're like, that doesn't seem like the right answer. Like that seems like the wrong way to think about this, or the wrong way to approach this. I think I can get a better score, more weight, this, that, or the other, doing it this way. And for me, that experience is how you know that for sure. And until you can go through that in the way that I'm asking you to, how will you know you can't do that? And a big part of like our job here, in addition to like just putting words on paper and telling you what to do for exercise, is to try to shape your experience so that you are ready for what's coming. Because we've seen, going on 10 plus years of CrossFit Games, like how many different iterations there have been of the sport, how athletes evolve, and kind of seeing the trends in the sport. So to me, we take our personal experience of watching years of athletes competing at all different stages, all different levels, and that's how we inform to help you grow as an athlete. And, unfortunately, there's no way to snap your fingers and get through it. You have to go through it to get there. So, this is actually a lesson to like younger athletes that like, I know you see the teenagers who qualify for the CrossFit Games, or maybe someone at your gym that 5 years ago started CrossFit and 18 months later at the CrossFit Games. Like those days are pretty much behind us outside of a very rare instance. So to get to where you want to be, you have to be willing to put yourself through it, which means years for most people of hard work and dedication without that instant gratification, which in our society is pretty challenging because we're all used to having our phone pop up and we got the reel we want to watch next. Like that's not how things go in the real world. And I think the gym is a great way to kind of teach yourself that lesson because it transcends outside of the four walls of the gym.
So I think what's unique about this category is we sort of laid out these ideas of your personal history, that includes previous sports that you've played, that includes the training that you do within the gym, that includes the actual experiences you have out on the competition floor. We talk about experience and reps and all that, but that combined with education and perspective is what creates, the overarching theme that we're looking for here. We need the side of, yes, you go and do this thing. And then this side of you've learned from it. And then if you've learned from it, can you actually put that out into the world? I I think that's such an important thing. And we talk nonstop within Athlete IQ about education and just knowing what these things mean, and the fact that you have this mountain of data built into every training session you have. And some people use that data and some people don't. And it's
you
obviously
have to be ravenous for that data. You have to want to take that stuff in at all times. It doesn't matter where the inputs are coming from. Yes, you have to sift through some of that because some of it's just noise that you see on social media or thinking that you're falling behind. But for me, that's such an important point, is that you have to take as much information from a training piece in each individual piece and then extrapolate that across an entire day, a week, a month, a phase, or seasons and years. Like if you aren't constantly taking down that information, you're figuring out, where could I have picked up a transition? Could I have hung on for one less set? Could I have ran at this pace versus that pace and figured out what that would have done to me? Like that is the stuff that, you have a conversation with an athlete who's looking to break through to the next level. Those are the things that the best performers think about. They want the 0.1%. They're looking for as many 0.1% as they can. Whereas the average person, when they're brand new, is like, oh, like this is how your back looks like when you deadlift. Like I'm going to do that one thing. But as you get better and better, those things become even more and more small, but more important, because that's how you eke out that last, 1% over your competitors.
Yeah. And I feel like this is probably just popped into my head because of my construction background, but like, even when you're just starting, even just a rough sketch helps. You're getting ready to go into something, you have some previous experience, and it's like, okay, well, I've tried this before, and maybe it's skill acquisition, and I've tried beating my head against the wall, and that doesn't work so well. So if constant repetition isn't the answer, what is the answer? And you start to learn as you're moving through it, and then your sketch becomes, a blueprint, and then it becomes, fucking whatever, 3D map or something like that. But when someone like, Tia goes into a workout, she's got this absolutely immaculate, detailed blueprint of all of these other things that she's been through. And that's what you're trying to develop as you're educating yourself. You're trying to use those things. I feel like you could almost educate yourself to a point and still not remember right before the workout. Like we see people seem to have CrossFit amnesia in competitions. You're just like, wait, what? Like, I know that person in the gym. I know what they know. I know their knowledge. They're moving like crazy, or they decided in a 20-minute workout that their first round should be 1 minute and it's a 5-rounder, whatever, things like that. So,
well, the thing that jumped into my mind as you were saying that is like that volume trap. You have the brand new athlete who thinks that the reason they're not so-and-so, not Frazier, not Tia, whoever the hell else, is because they haven't had enough experience to be like, all right, I haven't done enough reps to catch up to them. So I got to do 15 things every single day for the next 3 months to see if I can close that gap. And that's a trap. Like that's going to push you probably further away from your goals. And at some point in your journey, you're going to have that moment where you realize you're doing too much and you need to do less and you need to do it better. But to me, that perfectly explains why so many athletes, when they're, they finally catch the CrossFit bug and want to compete, immediately start laying on so much volume because they're like, I need to have this experience and I have that experience. And yes, you need to have those experiences, but you need to have them in a dose that actually creates growth versus just throwing as much shit against the wall and see what sticks.
Chill.
So how about some examples in terms of education itself? Like there's obviously how much weight can I lift? How much weight can I lift when I'm tired? What is this set supposed to look like? What's my 2K row? For pacing instructions and stuff like that. What do you guys, what are the first things that come to mind for you guys that are so important when it comes to education? Because I don't think, again, we're asking athletes to truly have perspective on their own personal experience.
I think there has to be a level of, and I don't know if we're going to overlap here a bunch, but that's okay.
I think that's important though, because it is an ecosystem.
Yeah,
There's a lot of connections being drawn.
Education I think it's not a coincidence that the best athletes in the relatively short history of our sport are also very intelligent, especially when it comes to programming and understanding kind of for them specifically, understanding what they need to do, kind of understanding the energy systems, understanding the variance that's required, and understanding that just because I don't have the biggest 1-rep max doesn't mean I'm not still hugely competitive. But I think there is a level of a baseline level of education that's necessary with kind of the foundational physiological and like we said, energy systems, like just the basics, under maybe even like a little bit of kind of thinking like from a grade school perspective, understanding some like basic concepts of like physics, like leverage. There's so many little things like that when we talk
like
in
ownership, right? Like you own the things you have to know. You have to have some level of care.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm kind of talking more of like a nuts and bolts perspective. Like if you don't understand why are Drew Hunter and Sherb telling me for the 14th time in a deadlift video that my feet and my hands need to be closer, and they keep saying this word leverage and I don't understand it, so I'm going to ignore it and I'm just never going to get better. Like you got to, that to me, that's basic. That's like an understanding of how, and understanding that everybody's body is different. The shape and proportions of your body is going to be different than your peers. Oh, why does my snatch look different than so-and-so? There has to be kind of you have to educate yourself on why those things are, because I think having a deeper understanding of, why it makes sense for you to be doing something different than somebody else is hugely important. And when you're first getting started, the specifics of how different, for example, your program is from somebody else is much less important than you gaining a knowledge and the understanding of kind of like what does right look like? What should this movement look like kind of from a basic nuts and bolts perspective, and how can I try to replicate that as closely as I can so that I am laying that more physical foundation for future success.
Yeah, the prongs of this fork are the actual education in terms of the things we talked about, numbers, strategy, things like that. But then this idea of being a student of the game, I think is such an important aspect of the education side. I fucking love it when an athlete's like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing it this way? Like, to me, that sets off, that's a light bulb moment where you're like, okay, this person has the potential to go from good to great.
Right.
They care enough to understand these things, and at first it truly is just at a basic level, but I've worked with enough athletes that are physically gifted that are like, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to do it. And there's something different about the buy-in. There's something different about the understanding that's there. And we're starting to get more and more of a peek behind the scenes with sort of whatever you want to call it, the YouTube revolution, and seeing like these people know their shit. Yeah. These athletes really know their shit. And it's important.
Yeah, I'm always, when remote coaching, specifically when it comes to things like how to pace things, how to approach things, a lot of times when I'm working with my athletes, I like to use a question rather than a statement. Like when I say, all right, tell me about your paces. What should you be running at for your sustain your reach? That's me checking in on my athlete IQ. I want them to know, be able to look at a workout, look at something, and be able to read into it and make an honest assessment of how it's going to go before it goes. And whether it goes exactly like they think or goes completely wrong, like different from that, both experiences are valuable. But the idea here is I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to figure it out yourself. And I want to be the coach that inspires the athlete to try to figure that out. And a lot of times I'll get a little bit of pushback early on, like, you're my coach, like, tell me what to do. And it's like, that's not how this relationship is going to work. Because if I do, I'm enabling you to not have that growth mindset that I'm looking for. You're not allowing yourself to have ownership of, hey, I should know exactly what my 500 row is, my 1,000 meter row, my 2K, my 5K. Same thing for running and lifting. Like, these data points are baseline knowledge. It's kind of silly that they still put like, what is your, fight gone bad score in your CrossFit Games profile? Because I don't know many affiliates that still do fight gone bad somewhat regularly, but that does inform you about
those box jumps, though.
Tells you a little bit about, hey, what's this, muscular overload stimulus going to go like when
40 feet off the
you're
box
doing this, that, or the other. Like, that information is super valuable when it comes time to then apply to later things. How do you know how things are going to go? Based upon past experience. And that is ever evolving. So let's say you say your paces are going to be, my reach is a 730 and you find out that your reach is actually an 8. You learn that you can't run as fast as you can, or maybe you run faster and you know that you have to adjust things. So to me, it's all about creating that established knowledge and then realizing that I'm not a fixed object. I'm constantly in motion and I'm changing over time, and to make those changes on the fly. So to me, I want an athlete thinking. I don't want them just mind off exercising. We'll save that for the open when you put all the reps in and you've earned that confidence through lots of practice. But when it comes to training, I want you thinking just as much as I want you exercising.
So we've talked about a lot of things that sort of create this own funnel or pyramid or whatever within experience, and what's coming out the other side is perspective. So it's a, nod to 40-year-old version. If you don't use it, you lose it. That you need to be able to take this information and do something with it. You need to take all of it and put it out into the world within your training, within your competition experiences, all that stuff. I think that's probably the best way to round this topic out, is to just touch on like if you don't take your history and take your perspective and put it out there, again, there's something that's happening. You're sort of stopping short. Like, it's good that you're starting to put the reps in and that you're educating yourself. But then if it's, you throw the papers up in the air and say, fuck this shit, I'm just going to go fucking ham out on this workout and end up, going from first to last. What was the point?
Running a 5K and stopping 400 meters short and being like, good enough. Like, you didn't finish the race. Finish the last part of that. That's the last thing that needs to happen there. If you're really looking to get all you can from your training, you have to take that extra level of care. Right. Otherwise, you're just kind of exercising. You're not training.
I think I'll take like a slightly different perspective to round it out.
Hey,
I'm gonna steal. I did throw up a little bit. Eggs.
Bless you.
I'm gonna steal this from a book, but I think it's a common enough sort of saying, or everybody will understand it. But compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who somebody else is today. And I think that can help you kind of go have that there. Like we said, there's the 10,000 foot view with kind of the experience side, but when it comes to test and retest week, for example, especially if you have training partners or you are fighting to be competitive and you know that there are certain metrics that you need to hit, it doesn't matter, like, having those metrics in mind kind of a long time down the road. You need to hit all of the smaller increments that occur on the way in order to get there. So when you start to, feel bad about your performance, you have to, if that happens, you have to think, like, am I a little bit better than I was yesterday or the last time I did this? And that incremental, that, the super small kind of compounding interest effect is massive and can have, imagine you get, everybody's seen the chart from like Atomic Habits, like you get 0.1% better every day. And it's like over the course of a year, that's massive, but it doesn't take much to just make that small incremental change in a vacuum, but stack those wins on top of each other in order to kind of see that long progress. Sure.
And the mistake there is cashing out.
Exactly.
The mistake is you're starting to go up that graph and you think it's linear. And you're like, I'm not really going to get that much better.
Yeah,
so
it's not linear for sure. That's an important concept. The compounding interest makes it work really well. But like, you start stacking those things, and once you have that momentum, that train starts going. That incline is steep.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and save you a little bit of money. The time you've all been waiting for. SharpenTheAxeCo.com, the Making Waves collection. Yes, it actually has all the things in it. The shorts and the bras and the accessories and all that good stuff is built into this. It's our biggest release in a really long time, and I think it fits in really well with this episode. We really believe that this side of taking time for yourself and getting your mind right in life is potentially more important or just as important as the physical side. So we dedicated an entire collection to really sort of stopping and slowing down and seeing the waves. That's sort of our version here in Maine, but whatever it is for you, so that you can go out there and make waves. And if you like to see waves, you can go to Kauai, where the Keala Foundation is. Boom, segue. Keala. You save 10% on the order, and we donate 10% to the Keala Foundation. SharpenTheAxeCo.com. Making Waves collection, Wednesday the 10th.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save on your first order. While you gents are away, I did a little product testing with one of our competitors and quickly realized that it's super important that we have that digestive enzyme in proper recovery, because I did not digest a fellow competitor's protein.
Yikes.
Again, I was looking to check it out, see what it's about. And I'm going to tell you right now, it does not hold a candle to proper recovery. So again, you can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on your first order of proper recovery with those digestive enzymes.
Did you use that candle in the bathroom?
A few candles.
Yeah, a few candles. And finally, we're brought to you by Pure Spectrum. You can head to purespectrum.com, use the code word Misfit.
PureSpectrumCBD.com.
PureSpectrumCBD.com, use the code word Misfit to save on some order. Some order on your order. Yes.
I mean, you could save on someone else's order.
You could.
You saying order?
Then you'd have to pay for it.
Save on your order. One of my go-tos is the tincture. So like going home from the gym, I coach pretty late, kind of that time between when I actually leave work and then I have to run home and I cook dinner. So it's not like, not saying it's stressful, but it's like, it's not, I don't have a ton of time between when I do that and when I have to go to bed. So the full dropper of that 2,500 milligram tincture, combine that with some blue blockers. And by the time it's bedtime.
It's bedtime. Love it.
PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use the code word Misfit.
All right. The absolute best way to support us in this podcast is to head to either misfitathletics.com for your individual programming needs or Team Misfit for your affiliate programming needs. You can also head to the SugarWOD marketplace, but all of those programs are available for 2 weeks for free. So if you're listening to the Athlete IQ podcast and you're like, wow, these guys know what they're talking about, you can try it for 2 weeks for free. All right, back to the episode. I didn't know if we were going mind or body next, but I think we're going mind if we're getting into that. Yeah. So one of the staples here under the mind category is patience. So compounding interest. So much of it has to do with patience.
Yeah.
You know, I've never seen a professional athlete like an Olympian side of things. I've never seen what their training looks like, but I just have this feeling like there is no one else on earth that trains like a CrossFit Games athlete does. I have that theory sort of built into the back of my head just because of there's sort of no off season, the amount of things that you need to get better at, as opposed to like, I need to ski down this hill super fast, like something to that effect. And that makes the patience game mandatory. You know, there are other sports where you could concentrate your patience, where you could give yourself a little bit of leeway for a pretty big chunk of time. And I know that a lot of athletes do that, and there are mental benefits to that. But the patience piece when it comes to a CrossFitter is you are going to get an unrecognizable amount better every time you do something. And that can be really challenging for people that aren't willing to dig into the data.
Might not be recognizable for weeks or months either.
Right.
I was just going to say, I'm reading a book that's called Pound the Stone by Josh Metcalf. He did the, I'm going to space on the name of his other book. Oh, it was Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Right.
But the idea there is that, the stonemason pounds the stone 1,000 times and nothing happens. And on the 1,001th blow, whatever happens, he's getting the stone to crack or whatever. 1,001th? Is that how you say it? Yeah, sure it is. 1,001th. Anyways,
sounds good to me.
The idea here is that
I came in one.
It'd be a lot of reps before you notice your change, and then all of a sudden you're like, how did that happen? And it feels instantaneous, and it's not. It's like that person who grinds, in the gym for months and months working on their back squat, and test week comes up and they don't pee out their squat.
Don't even bring up the must be nice mentality. That mentality drives me crazy when people are seeing what you're talking about from the outside looking in, and it must be nice to be, this person that just won 270K.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, do you understand?
Must be nice to be Frazier winning that again.
That tunnel of darkness that they traveled through, that was 90% of their story that you did not see. Yeah. You didn't see that thing happen. And again, luckily we're starting to get more and more of a peek behind the curtain with these people, but like the best of the best, they're not telling you what they're doing. They're not going to be like, watch this. This is exactly how I train, and this is the mentality that I have. And I would love it if my closest competitors adopted all of these strategies that are there. There's something just so, I don't know, insidious and like infectious about the must be nice mindset.
It gives you a break. It allows you to think that they just genetically predisposed to be this amazing athlete. They didn't work hard.
Lets you off the hook. Basically, it's a relief. Oh man, it's a relief that person is just born just naturally just did that. Mm-hmm. These
segues are too easy. So maturity. is
what's that?
Basically one of the first things that I wrote down when it came to this entire thing. When you watch an athlete grow up in front of your eyes, both as a person and as an athlete and honestly as a professional, when it comes to, there's a lot of things when you're trying to be a professional in this sport. You got to think about your Instagram account and your brand and all of these different pieces, and the level of maturity that you bring to the table within this pursuit. And I mean, honestly, it's going to bleed in if you do it everywhere in your life, but maturity is probably one that doesn't get talked about quite enough. I've never met a super high level athlete that within the sport and within this specific pursuit was not extremely mature about how all of this stuff works.
And I'd say this is the hardest environment ever to be mature, because you're constantly being fed stories on social media of like people who just blink their eyes and all of a sudden they're that person. And actually, this is an interesting topic for me, because specifically the maturity thing, because working with teenagers, you see them like wanting and aspiring to be the Tia Claires of the world, and things not happening instantaneously, and having those rough days in the gym, and wondering why is so and so able to do this movement or doing that, and I'm not doing this, or why is it that percentage for them and different for me? And to me, to see that change in the mindset of the two teenagers that we had on the top 5 at the games this year, both of them have had an amazing leap forward in that ability to mature and just realize that, like, if I just stay the course, this will make up the difference of why I didn't get to the podium like I wanted to be on last year. Like, both of the athletes specifically, had they done a little bit better in one event, are both standing on the podium at the end of the weekend. And that means that we're going to spend most of this season still being very fit, but addressing those specific needs, because instead of taking a 19th, we take an 8th. We're standing on the podium. And the maturity to realize that, like, I'm delaying satisfaction. I'm not being able to go into the gym and just snatch and clean and do all the things I'm really good at, but I'm going to go to the gym and do the things I do not like to do, the paces I hate to hold, all of these hours where I'm just miserable on these machines. But then realizing that if I can sacrifice my comfort in the short term, in the long term, I'm going to be proud of not only the work that I put in, but the result at the end of the day. That's not an easy thing to go through, but it is the mark of the difference between a average exerciser and the best.
I mean, it's kind of one of the things that like makes human beings unique. It's the ability to identify that sacrificing something now in order to have something better later is like, that's a massive kind of revelation that separates us from monkeys, like literally animals. And it's the maturity, I think, is really closely tied to the experience piece. I'm thinking today we had a handful of athletes doing the Wodapalooza team qualifier. First time, most of them have been like doing kind of a qualifier where we're setting up cameras, and I'm kind of like, so I'm trying to help, but I'm also trying to toe the line between, like, kind of you said, helping and telling them what to do, and being like, you guys are going to need to figure this shit out. Like I remember doing this. I remember, setting up cameras in 2013. It takes 6 hours for everybody to set up cameras. And by then you've cooled down, you need to warm up 17 times. And it's like, there's the experience level of that and the maturity to kind of think ahead to what needs to be done, both like in that small instance as well as kind of over the course of a long term. But the maturity side is it comes with that experience. And I would say that one of the best ways that you can try to develop that is finding somebody, whether it's hopefully, ideally, you have somebody in person, you kind of have that mentor, somebody to look up to, whether they're in the same kind of on the same track as you are, just maybe a little bit further ahead, an athlete with more experience who's maybe better than you, or it's a coach, or even if it's somebody like, I don't like to use I wouldn't love to recommend somebody finds like a celebrity or someone in the CrossFit space, like on their YouTube, but if on their YouTube channel, but if you find that person and are able to dissect and kind of delineate the things that they're doing well, things that they're not doing well, and kind of try to start to map out that picture of what a mature athlete looks like on your brain, and then try to bring that kind of into the world, that's kind of where, that's how you can start to develop that without, aside from just the time it takes to mature as an athlete.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things to pay attention to when you're trying to develop this, because it's, one of those things that we talk about that's not on the elemental chart. It's flying around. It's a wazi, it's a woozy.
It's not landed.
Think about your highs and lows and whether it's possible for those to be smoothed out a little bit. So if your graph of where you're at mentally is just rock bottom, this is the best day ever, rock bottom, this is the best day ever, that's an issue. That's an issue. That is a sign that either you're just getting started in this and are learning, which is great, or that you've been in this for a while and you've been riding this roller coaster for a while, and that's going to be an issue. And all of the other things that we talk about within this mindset part of the triangle are going to depend on whether you can understand that there are going to be ebbs and flows within your training. This is the words that we have below maturity are patience, expectations, dedication, lifestyle. Without maturity, those things are really fucking challenging, like damn near impossible. So you think about setting expectations for yourself. If you are always positive that you're going to win the games and that you're quitting to do a triathlon, setting expectations for your season will be pretty fucking hard, won't it?
Yeah.
Like that'll be like damn near impossible.
I think all of those little the smaller things, the more tangible decisions that you can make on a daily basis, the decision to go to bed on time, the decision to, do or not do that extra training piece and swap it out with mobility work. Those micro decisions are kind of contribute to that maturity meter that you talked about, that attribute marker. Like when you start to think about what you're about to do, why you're about to do it, that is, subconsciously kind of contributing to that maturity aspect. And to like one other thing, the highs and lows thing is a super important concept. And I actually talked about this a little bit more from the coaching perspective. For me, when we're thinking about a coach-athlete relationship, the coach is the thermostat, the athlete is the thermometer. Because the athlete, and this was the context of this was in a competition setting where the athlete is kind of the athlete's the one who's going to get fired up when they hit a big lift. They're going to get super disappointed when things go poorly. The coach is the one who kind of keeps the temperature in the room set at the standard. It's like and by the same token, you don't get overly excited when an athlete does extremely well. You don't get super disappointed and kind of show that disappointment to your athlete. And when you're just kind of on that individual athlete journey, you have to kind of take those things. Be excited when things go well, be disappointed when things go poorly, but don't ever let that pull kind of your thermostat away from that median temperature.
True. All right. So expectations. This is a dicey one, boys. This is a very dicey topic because we want people to have realistic expectations, but it is only the people who set their expectations further than we think that they can go that end up being truly great.
Another word that comes to mind is just the ego thing, like how ego can both fuel you and it can derail you. Like, I think the same thing with expectations. Like, if you're looking to do what you can in the sport and you really do want to do something grand, like, you have to be willing to commit to saying that you're going to go try to do this thing. Now, your coach or your peers might help remind you that it might not happen next week, that it might take a few years to get there. But to me, that's exactly what I think of when it comes to this. Is it's a very close parallel with ego. Like, you have to have a good dose of it to be able to go and do the thing that you want to do, but too much of it can be poisonous and can completely derail you. So to me, kind of like you were just saying with that thermostat, you should be in a range when it comes to expectations. Like, you are looking to do something great and you should set out to do something that is challenging for you, that's above where you currently are, but obviously within a certain amount of reason based on where you currently are and the timeline you're giving yourself to do this, said task or event or whatever the objective is here. So to me, I like to think of it very similar to that thermostat when it comes to expectations.
What comes to mind here is, sure, the if I'm, me personally, if I all of a sudden said I want to try to be a CrossFit Games athlete, I would assume that somebody would be like, hey man, like,
you weigh 150 pounds.
Yeah.
We're going to need to get you a snack.
I don't know. Look at that grip test. I need a snack. I need a sandwich.
That was the entire games this year.
But, so I want to go to the CrossFit Games. Well, I can snatch 235 right now. It's like, okay, well, I need to be able to snatch 285. I don't snatch 235 and then snatch 285. I snatch 235 and then I snatch 236 and I snatch 237. And when you start to, it's good to have, you want that kind of that big, hairy, audacious goal out in the world. And we've talked about how important it is to set that expectation. And maybe it is, you kind of got to be in like that zone of where it's like, it's attainable, but it's tough, but it's not so far outside of the scope that it's actually going to make me more upset when I say it out loud. But we have to have that goal. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because the next step is breaking that big goal down. It's the same way you approach a problem. Somebody's having a problem. Well, what's the problem? It's like, okay, well, I'll stop that. I don't have a good example. The point is that we break that larger goal down into smaller, more manageable chunks. And maybe we break those smaller, more manageable chunks into those bite-sized chunks that you can look at and say, oh, I can do that. Like, right. I can shave 1 second off my 2K. Right. I can add 5 pounds to my snatch if I work on, the positional stuff that we harp on so frequently. And every once in a while, you check in with kind of that giant graph, and you find out that you're still down here, but it's like, but you started here and now you're just a little bit further along, and you got to take one step to take two.
Yeah, I think essentially you're saying it's an iterative process. Yeah. It's the type of thing where we do need to set that gigantic goal out in the future. But if you don't line up everything that needs to happen, that comes first, then you're that person. So we get remote coaching applications all the time, and they want to go to the games in like 6 years or something crazy. Yeah. And what it's doing for many of those people is letting them off the hook this year, and then it's letting them off the hook next year, in the year after that. So this is why we talk about, like, one of my go-to pep talks is the power of possibility, like daring to believe that if someone else can do something, that you can also do it. But here's the kicker. You have to, like, literally believe it. We had someone reach out about doing a podcast. Preston reached out to ask about doing a podcast on mental barriers when you get stuck in something. And to me, that is all about this idea. There's someone somewhere back there that has convinced you that you probably can't do this thing. And I think we're talking about sort of that barrier where you should definitely be able to do something and it just keeps not happening. Luckily, there aren't as many of those left in the sport because of the power of possibility, because the community just keeps going, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. It sort of felt like all of these teenagers were coming up and they could lift more weight than everybody else in the sport. And then voila, everybody snatches 300 pounds now, right? It's kind of funny that the original one was 100 kilos. That was the original one that no one could do.
Finally, I got there.
Yeah.
I'm there.
And now the women are chasing that very quickly. Have we had a 220 or 225 in competition? I think the biggest I saw was 215.
Kara, was it Kara? I think Kara hit 220. Kara snatched 220, I think. There you go.
So that's what happens in a decade of CrossFit.
Goddamn, that Bella complex that watching Tia do it at 260, 265. I was like, there it is. Yep. I can't do that.
That was impressive.
She's strong.
Those weights were very, very impressive. I mean, some of those weights were clean and jerk maxes 5 years ago at the CrossFit Games. Like,
not even 5 years ago though. Like yesterday. That's what happens with CrossFitters. It's, well, I can clean and jerk this, so I can probably do it twice. What?
Yeah, easy.
What the hell does that mean? So again, the expectations thing is not the easiest thing in the world to nail down. We need that massive goal. But again, if you just lay that out there, and I mean, you're chasing that, you don't get a day off, let alone a fucking year.
No.
Like, and again, that's where we see someone, it's like, okay, I want to know exactly what you want this year. Like, what are we doing this year? How do we sort of lay that part out to get there?
Yeah, you need check-ins along your way. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with an athlete saying 3 or 4 years from now, I want to be this or that, but you better have things on the path there that let you know that you're on the right direction.
To me, I think that's more a recognition that I know that I'm not where I need to be to go to the games next year, and maybe not the year after that. And I think ideally, it's more a recognition of I'm not there yet, but I think I could be. And there is a difference, I think, between kind of that long timeline where I'm letting myself off the hook and more just an identification. And maybe that's part of the maturity thing is knowing knowing where you're at, but also on the other side of the coin is I have the confidence that I can get there and that I'm going to.
Maturity is like putting yourself on the hook.
Yeah, exactly.
Like on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, nope, I'm up there. Hang me up. I'm in this.
And it has to happen. I mean, I don't think we know of a single athlete that hasn't explicitly stated.
Those days are.
I fell ass backwards in the CrossFit Games.
Those days are over.
Sorry, that didn't happen. No one does that anymore. It's people who are constantly saying it, and everything they do and every part of their being exists to improve upon that goal. Otherwise, they're not there anymore. All the folk heroes from CrossFit Games lore years ago are no longer in the sport because a lot of them quickly realized they didn't want to commit the effort and the energy it took to take that leap and to stay with their peers, and decide to do other things. Which is
everybody was like, it's easy to be a CrossFit athlete, and now it's
not really so hard. Easy. Yeah, it's not so easy. Another downstream effect of maturity is dedication, right? And I think because we've harped on some similar topics, I'm going to take a left turn when it comes to dedication. Every single thing that you do contributing towards the goal is what we would consider dedication. So if you are taking time off, if you're reducing volume, if you're doing anything like that, it is still on purpose in pursuit of improving. So dedication can take a lot of different forms. I think we understand the grind as CrossFitters. I think we understand everything that you're doing is actually, moving you forward to get to that place. But sometimes dedication is knowing when you should only train 4 days in a week, or when that last piece probably isn't a good idea. So I don't want to say that is like the epitome of what we're talking about. But again, because some of these are redundant, I think it's important to say what makes you dedicated isn't always just, I bet you I can run through that wall and talk to somebody next door.
Yeah, I mean, the other week, Brady was sick, and he was like, and he's in the gym on Monday, and he's upset that he's not training, everything felt heavy. It's like, yeah, well, you were in bed for 2 days straight. It's like, no shit. But it's like, but it's the maturity and the dedication there is like, okay, taking these next 2 or 3 or 4 days light, or maybe even out of the gym, like that long-term effect is much better than I'm just going to beat my head into the wall for the next 3 days. Maybe I get hurt, and maybe I just prolong this hiatus, or this basically being sick or string of poor performances and stuff like that. And it's recognizing when it's like, okay, part of that process of, getting your reps in is sometimes just is not getting your reps in, knowing when to pump the brakes, knowing when to leave the gym, because that's a huge part of
I think a huge part of that too is just
and recovery side of things.
Explain to him that like a couple days off aren't going to add 5 years to your timeline. Like you're not going to qualify 5 years later than you were going to because you took Monday and Tuesday off this past week. Like you're going to be fine from that. I just go back to the bank account thing. It's all deposits and withdrawals. Like every time we do a training piece, we're investing in our future fitness self, and every time we take a day off, we're doing the same thing. It doesn't always just need to be fitness, but ask yourself, is this taking me one step closer or one step away? And to me, that's how these serious dedicated athlete makes the most progress, is every decision they make is with that in mind. Does this take me one step closer or one step further away? And obviously we all deserve permission every once in a while to take a couple days off, enjoy time with family, go on vacation, like those. We aren't saying don't do those things. You just have to realize that you hear the stories of, Froning back in the day taking a kettlebell on his honeymoon. Like the guy was trying to win the CrossFit Games over and over again. So
Sure, I've taken a rower on his honeymoon.
I might have. It's all right. She was napping. She didn't notice. She couldn't hear the zing of the rower on the porch. Definitely couldn't hear it because I was doing like 6 calories.
The porch was like 1 foot longer than a rower. I think she noticed. She opened the door and tripped and fell on the stairs.
Use it once for 10 minutes.
God damn it.
Good thing I brought it.
All right. Last but not least, again, not necessarily redundant in the name of just saying the same things over and over, but those are lifestyle pieces that aren't directly related to like physical recovery. One of the things that was a subcategory that we talked about in our meeting for the podcast was something like personal relationships, where you might be in a personal relationship that is annihilating your mental resources. It's not that hard for that to happen. It could be a family member. It could be a coworker, could be significant other. I mean, there's obviously a lot of possibilities there. And that's the kind of thing where you do have to figure out how to be selfish without, you know, creating just a new avenue for stress.
I think, yeah, having watched it happen to a lot of different athletes in person, and, you know, every time somebody gets that competitive bug that they really want to start competing, like the first thing you usually see is like within the gym itself is like that person kind of puts themselves on the island, and it's like the only thing that matters is competing. And well, the thing is, the people that you spend the most time with, quite frankly, aren't always quite as interested in CrossFit as you are. And the recognition of that is like, that's
can
fine.
Confirm.
Yeah, you can,
Yeah.
you need to have that, but you also need to recognize that not everybody around you is going to. And if that's the only thing that people can talk to you about, and they like, that's not a sustainable way to maintain the relationships that fuel your, you know, the hormonal responses of people, like, you know, saying, hey, great job, good to see you the other day, or like, hey, let's talk about this thing that's not related to CrossFit but is still important in your life, or is important in my life, and like, oh, you actually still, you care, you noticed that I was doing, you know, that I'm working on this for myself, or like that I bought a new house and I'm working on that, like, oh, thanks for noticing. Like those little things, while it may not seem like it's contributing to your specific goal or your fitness, I would argue that it is, in that like kind of what you give is what you get back. And if your giving is my head's down, my head's in my phone, I'm watching my video, I'm reviewing everything in the gym, and I'm not talking to other people about things that aren't CrossFit or showing interest in what other people are doing, well, why would anybody want to have a personal relationship with you if it's just about you? And there is an element of selfishness that goes into competing, but you have to know where that line is if you want, you know, people to support you and you to feel good about your performance. And that's a huge part of it.
What I'm hearing from you, and this is something that we talk to athletes about, I think, at least I have in the past, is like what you're doing is a pretty lonely pursuit. Like you're in the gym in the hours that no one else typically is in the gym. You're doing your own program. You're not participating necessarily in the community because they're there for general fitness. You're there to be the best athlete you can be. And you hear the stories of, like, you know, Kobe Bryant going into the gym at 3 a.m. and just shooting free throws for 3 hours when everybody else is celebrating their last victory. And, you know, the important part there is that you should aim to have people in your life to help charge your batteries back up, because again, you are going to be constantly with the idea in mind that you're trying to make this, you know, giant change in your body, and that causes a ton of stress. You need to find an outlet that allows you to recharge your batteries. And for a lot of people, that is going out and going bowling with buddies, or, you know, taking a night off from training and just like hanging out around the house, or going home to your spouse and talking about your day. But you need to have those positive outlets. And like what you were saying, you need to reciprocate. It's not just, here's all my bullshit, tell me how to deal with it, but like, tell me what's going on in your life. And that back and forth helps create a situation where you're not only wrapped around this one thing, which is trying to be the fittest human being you can, but you have this opportunity to decompress. Because that's the reason why we ask athletes to take time off after the games. It's not like we don't want you to be committed or try to do it again next year. It's that we know how stressful the event is. It's really important that you take some time off to recharge so you can mount a better charge in the future season. If you try to blend seasons together, those are the athletes that we see work really hard for 2 seasons and you never hear from them again because they just burnt themselves out and didn't have the people around them kind of recharging their batteries to go back.
What happens when things go wrong? What happens when you were working for something and you don't achieve it, you don't qualify, you don't make it to quarterfinals, you don't make it to semifinals, you don't, whatever it is, you get injured, and all of a sudden you like, and then nobody's there, and you're by yourself because the rest of the time you were so inundated in your own what you were doing, and you neglected those relationships, and you neglected the people who want to be in your corner but just don't know you. I don't know who that person is anymore. It's like, you know, like, what if that happened to like you, if we didn't talk about anything other than your fitness and that happened, like, I would certainly feel bad, but I don't have that personal connection to you where I can empathize with you. I can't feel, man, it made me think of that kid who defined empathy at the Kiala Foundation. Some 8-year-old kid just blasted everybody with the perfect definition of empathy. I think it was like you feel what that other person is feeling. You don't feel bad for them. You feel bad with them because you wanted them to succeed as bad as you did because Sherb cares about me and I care about him. And so we want the best for, I don't care that much about Sherb, exactly. But you know what I mean? But if you don't have those and then things go wrong, like, and you're on an island by yourself and, life rafts aren't close.
Amen. I think it's fitting that whether it was on purpose or not, we've essentially said gain some perspective and get your mind right.
Gee.
And then these tangible things when it comes to the body, like that stuff will become a lot easier. Like that stuff that we can hold on to. So
body
while
stuff's easy.
we're running out of time, that doesn't bother me. We're going to talk about the stuff within the body, but it's your training. It's understanding, our list here is skill, recovery, GPP, and, train with humility, train to improve as opposed to train to smash your training partner into the ground. This part is so challenging, but because it's something you can grab onto and it's something that you can see and you're physically working through a skill, or you're looking at misfitathletics.com, which pieces should I choose? And you have that GPP focus. You're like, I do need to get better at X. And then that, everything's going to rise together, as opposed to I do all the lifts and then hopefully I have time for the conditioning, or vice versa, whatever it is. So this final section of all of this stuff converging into what's actually taking place in the gym, that's when your athlete IQ really starts to take shape.
Yeah, the thing that you said, a little bit of the personalization and like realizing that you're not competing every single day in the gym is a really important thing, because one of the things you hear from us a lot is like, find your tribe, find people around you who are going to push you in the gym. But we've also seen firsthand, all of us, how that can derail an athlete who becomes so obsessed with just beating someone on a random Wednesday.
Yeah, your tribe is your support system. It's not your enemy.
That they start skipping steps, or they rest on their laurels, or they do the things they're very good at, and then, pump the brakes a bit and the things they're not good at, knowing that their skill or their weightlifting or something will take them ahead of their opponents. And, to me, just thinking about the body is like, we've said you need to have these experiences, you need to shape your mind, but you need to also shape your body. And for a lot of people, that's doing things that you're not going to be very good at, or things that you aren't good at relative to your peers. And accepting the fact that like you can use people around you to push or to see how things should be paced or how they're attacking it. But if you're in the middle of a workout and you're paying attention to somebody else and not focusing on what you should be doing, you aren't getting what you can from the training piece. And unfortunately, this derails a ton of people, because it's fun to compete. It's fun to razz your buddies when you beat them in a training piece. But at the end of the day, it needs to be about what makes you a better athlete, not about who gets to put up their name at the top of the leaderboard at the end of the class. Like that to me is a humongous part of developing the body, is figuring out the list of things you're not good at and making a solid game plan on how you're going to approach them. And, you can find people to work out with you, but you might be doing something a little bit different from them. And the idea is that you're personalizing for what you need, not what just is the room wants to do for a workout.
I think a lot of the things that we've talked about up to this point have an element of the need to kind of sit down, and whether it's just sit kind of in solitude, figuratively or literally, and just thinking about your goals, thinking about the kind of getting the mind and the expectations and the mental reps in and whatnot. Like, those things are probably more challenging for folks than, here's the list, here's 5 rounds for time, I'm going to do it. And like, of all the things that we've talked about, this is the easiest to get a grasp on. And because that is the case, you need to have a fucking tight grip on it. And you need to know, like, as you kind of gain the experience, you get into the gym, you build those reps, you start to learn things about, like, am I somebody who responds better to less is more, doing less, going harder, the Max Bragg sort of thing, where, 1 or 2 pieces a day at 1,000% is the dose that's required? Or do I actually need more training? Do I need to work on my aerobic system? All, like, this is the more of the nuts and bolts thing to me. This is the things that these are the things that CrossFitters are inherently good at. But if you want to take kind of your competition brain, or your just take yourself to the next level, whatever that is for you, you got to pay attention to it now. And you have to be a student of what things in the gym are contributing to that little micro goal. What's contributing to me getting to that 236 snatch, and then that 240 snatch, and then that 280 snatch, whatever it is.
Right. My first attempt at creating an all-encompassing explanation of this side of things was the intensity toolbox. So if you scroll back through Instagram, potentially the site somewhere,
it's only about 48,000 posts.
Yeah, the intensity toolbox is this thing where, we're acknowledging that 9 out of 10 CrossFitters can open their toolbox and grab the hammer, but that's all based on the saying, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the hammer is so important as one specific tool. And, we listed out whatever it was, 9 or 10 of these different tools, and the hammer does not work for skill acquisition. The hammer does not work for choosing your GPP pieces, right? The hammer works when it's time to use the hammer.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's so many other things. You're looking for precision, or you're looking for, when I think of skill acquisition, I have read a ton about this, and it's so cool, but also counterintuitive that you need to leave skills alone and, let them sink into your mind and your body, and then come back to that certain thing. Again, the hammer just is not going to help in that situation. It's going to cause injury. It's going to cause frustration. It's really going to screw things up. So understanding, taking perspective, having a good mindset, and coming in and saying, okay, today's the wrench and the screwdriver, and I do have to take my medicine, but that's once a week, and I'll pull the hammer out for, assault bike sprints.
In one of the ways we try to help athletes with this, with our pacing and feeling instructions and our training pieces. And
feeling, I like
feeling. But the thing that really stuck in my mind is that, you go and you'll see these stats from the Open every year that so-and-so did 20.2 and they held 44-second rounds for 20 straight minutes. And you're like, how the fuck is someone able to be a robot and move at exactly 44 seconds for 27 rounds in a row to get 27 rounds in a 20-minute workout? And that's because they deliberately practice that. When we give you pacing instructions, when we give you a feel of a workout, it's to clue you in on how that's supposed to go, and for you to really try to own that stimulus and own that feel so that you know exactly how that should go when that comes back up in the Open. And a great example of this is, we say something like, hey, we want you to sustain the pace in a 20-minute AMRAP. That doesn't mean slow, doesn't mean fast. It means sustain. It means hold the same split the entire time. And this is an example of you probably could get 5 rounds done really fast in 3 minutes. What do the next 17 minutes look like? And because you haven't deliberately practiced the right application or the right tool in this instance to get the job done, you don't know how to call upon that when it matters. You aren't able to realize that I was supposed to start with a 48-second round and hold that the entire workout. I started with a 27-second round and ended with a 27-second round. And I wondered why, I lost to my peers by 8 rounds. It's because you didn't practice the right tool for the application. So to me, I like to think of that specific thing is that we don't always just need to bash our heads into the ground, that sometimes it needs to be very calculated. And, we'll give athletes hey, I want your first round to take you 90 seconds. Or, even thinking back to the chest to bar, shoulder overhead bike piece that you and I did, you were very deliberate with how you explained how it should go and what would happen if you didn't go that way. And right. I think it probably would have played out exactly like you said, had not heeded your advice. But that goes for anybody, or why we talk about, pacing instructions, or we provide remote coaching. It's to help athletes work at that thing that they don't have in their toolbox yet, and to refine that thing, because we can all think of an athlete that we work with that has a very big glaring weakness that we're pouring a bunch of effort into, and probably why we give them 3 times the amount of explanation on this one thing that we might do not on other things, because we're like, we're pretty confident you kind of have that in the bag and we're not so worried about that, but we're really kind of pouring our energy and effort into that. And to me, that's how you make up the gaps that you don't have in your fitness right now. The things that are holding you back right now and keep you from not being able to punch your ticket to Madison or qualify for your semifinal or even make quarterfinals are because you're not pouring the right amount of intensity and effort into things that you're not good at now. And you don't realize that maybe that you don't need to go to 1,000 miles an hour. And that's your mindset of going 1,000 miles an hour is why you haven't made that leap to be the athlete you want to be.
I think we did it. Yeah, I think we made our way through it. I think that it's retest week, and use this information, please.
Yes.
And that's what we want more than anything. We had the tagline at the end of all the Misfit Project episodes. don't talk about it, be about it. Like, obviously still talk about it. Maybe it's don't just talk about it, be about it. Talk about it with your peers, work through it, but try to put this stuff into action. You know, there's no better explanation of putting this stuff into action than, you know, we had Hannah Hardy on the podcast, and she truly mixed, you know, who she is and what makes her special as a person and as an athlete with this other stuff that we 100%. Really sort of put out into the world. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Thank you to our show sponsors, properfuel.co, for your pre and post-workout needs. Use the code word MISFIT to save on your very first order. If you are already a customer, bundle those bad boys and save some dough as well. PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use the code word MISFIT. SharpenTheAxe.com. Use the code word Kiala. It's very fitting for the Making Waves collection, dropping on the 10th, just 2 days from now. Keala.
That's a shirt.
There is a Navy t-shirt that Hunter has unveiled. I'm
wearing a Navy t-shirt.
Very slowly, and he didn't show any of the logos.
It's a Navy t-shirt, though.
You want me to dump them?
And hey, if you want to support us, like actually us, MisfitAthletics.com or TeamMisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs of the SugarWOD marketplace.
Real estate's expensive up here, folks.
Goodness gracious. As always, I am at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs. Let me know what you would like to hear on the next episode, who you think our next guest should be, and we'll see you next time.